Welcome to NFL Focus. Today, we have two heavily contrasting stories that demand our undivided attention. One is a deep look into the future, dissecting the trade rumors and high-stakes roster moves that could ultimately decide if the San Francisco 49ers have what it takes to hoist another Lombardi trophy. But the other story carries us deep into the past, focusing heavily on a person, not a player. It is a story that requires us to completely put down our depth charts, push aside the scheme analysis, and just pause. It forces us to appreciate a human life and understand the immense gravity of what the football world has just lost. The San Francisco 49ers recently announced the sudden, heartbreaking, and incredibly tragic passing of former All-Pro defensive powerhouse Aldon Smith at the terribly young age of 36. Before we break down a single block or analyze a single draft pick today, this devastating news deserves our quiet respect and our full attention. In an emotional official statement, the 49ers organization expressed that they are completely devastated by the sudden and tragic loss of Aldon. They highlighted how his undeniable, breathtaking talent and absolute dominance on the gridiron were blindingly obvious from the absolute second he first stepped into the facility. He put together one of the single greatest rookie campaigns the National Football League has ever witnessed. But the organization didn't just talk about football. They made a point to remind the world that beyond his historic greatness as an elite competitor, Aldon will forever be remembered for his beautiful, infectious smile, a smile that genuinely lit up every single room he ever walked into. Aldon Smith entered the league with immense expectations, selected 7th overall in the historic 2011 NFL Draft. He would go on to spend 6 seasons battling in the trenches for the San Francisco 49ers, the Oakland Raiders, and the Dallas Cowboys. But what he accomplished during those first 2 magical jaw-dropping seasons in Northern California is something that every single longtime member of the faithful carries deep within their heart. As a rookie, he exploded onto the national stage, terrorizing opposing offenses and racking up an unbelievable 14 sacks. That legendary performance placed him second in a historic Defensive Rookie of the Year race, finishing just behind Von Miller. But then came 2012, the year Aldon Smith officially announced himself to the sports world as an absolute, unmitigated force of nature. He utterly demolished offensive game plans, exploding for 19.5 sacks in just his second year in the league. That historic performance rightfully earned him a Pro Bowl nod and a prestigious first-team All-Pro selection, while serving as the defensive engine that carried the 49ers all the way to Super Bowl 47 for an epic showdown against the Baltimore Ravens. Those are not just cold, empty statistics written in a record book. For anyone who sat on their couch or stood in the stadium watching that legendary defensive unit operate back then, Aldon Smith was a living, breathing, weekly nightmare for NFL quarterbacks. The very moment the ball was snapped, his explosive, lightning-fast burst off the line of scrimmage, combined with a relentless, completely unstoppable motor, defined everything he stood for on the field. Those numbers represent genuine moments of football immortality, timeless memories that we will cherish forever. Yet, as we look back on his life, it is a quiet detail from his final hours on this earth that truly shatters your heart. In the brief hours before he was found completely unresponsive in a vehicle, Aldon spent his time donating 10 pizzas to a local homeless charity in San Jose. That small, incredibly quiet gesture, completely removed from the blinding stadium lights, the multi-million-dollar contracts, and the roaring crowds, speaks volumes. It reveals something deeply authentic and beautiful about who he was as a human being when the helmet was off, the jersey was packed away, and the statistics no longer mattered. We cannot tell his story fully without acknowledging that his life and career were also heavily marked by profound personal struggles, painful league suspensions, severe legal battles, and long, grueling years away from the game he loved. These immense outside challenges ultimately prevented him from fully capturing the generational, transcendent talent that his coaches and teammates saw flashing from the absolute moment he arrived in the Bay Area. He was a deeply troubled, yet unbelievably gifted pass rusher whose incredible incredibly bright future was repeatedly derailed by immense personal battles. The life story of Alden Smith remains one of the most complex, tragic, and heartbreaking narratives in modern sports history. The absolute ceiling of what he could have achieved was so beautifully visible during those first 2 seasons, making it genuinely painful for football fans to watch his circumstances unravel the way they did over the years. Our deepest thoughts, our sincerest condolences, and our most fervent prayers go out to his family, his loved ones, his former teammates, and every single life he touched along the way. He left us far too soon at just 36 years old. Right now, we are hitting the exact 4-minute mark of our documentary, and I want to pause the analysis for a very quick moment to speak directly to you, our incredible audience. To our dedicated subscribers, and to those joining us for the very first time, we want to tell you that we pour an immense amount of hard work, sleepless nights, and absolute dedication into crafting these deep dive documentaries for you. Building a sports community like this requires a massive team effort, and we cannot do it without your incredible support. If you appreciate the depth of this storytelling, please take a quick second right now to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, share this video with a fellow football fan, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Every single new subscription serves as a massive wave of motivation for us to keep working hard and producing the highest quality content possible. Thank you so much for being the true heartbeat of this channel. Now, because the wheels of life and this relentless sport must keep spinning, even during our darkest days, let us transition over to the major roster news that is currently generating a massive amount of buzz and speculation across the league. The current pass rush situation for the San Francisco 49ers has officially become a top organizational priority, and the heavy conversations taking place behind closed doors right now are incredibly real, urgent, and filled with massive consequences for the upcoming season. When you look closely at the data from last season, the sheer urgency of this defensive conversation becomes completely impossible to ignore. The 49ers finished the year with the absolute lowest sack rate in the entire National Football League. For a proud franchise that has completely built its entire modern identity around controlling the line of scrimmage, creating absolute havoc in the opposing backfield, and making life a living hell for quarterbacks from the very first snap of the game, finishing dead last in sacks is a massive organizational failure that demands an immediate, aggressive response from management. Of course, the critical context behind those terrible numbers matters immensely. The defensive line suffered a catastrophic blow when their superstar edge rusher, Nick Bosa, went down with a devastating season-ending injury. To make matters worse, Michael Williams, the incredibly explosive first-round draft pick whom the front office had heavily invested in to be the cornerstone of the next generation of this pass rush, also suffered a major injury early in the year. Losing those two elite pieces simultaneously completely altered what this defensive unit could realistically accomplish. Those abysmal, league-worst statistics were a direct reflection of an absolute absence of healthy, elite talent on the field, rather than some fundamental failure of the defensive scheme or the coaching staff. The fantastic news for the faithful is that both Bosa and Williams are fully expected to be back at 100% and flying around the practice field this summer. On top of that, the strategic free agent signing of Osa Odigizua brings a massive upgrade to the interior defensive line, providing high-end starting talent and critical rotational depth. Just looking at this roster on paper, this pass rush should already be vastly superior to the product we saw on the field a year ago. Additionally, the highly impressive standout spring performances of young players like Romello Height and Jaden Dogger have injected a sense of genuine excitement about what the youthful pieces of this rotation can truly become under the right guidance. But despite those internal improvements, top NFL insiders are reporting that multiple general managers around the league firmly believe the 49ers are heavily expected to pull off a blockbuster trade for a premier, established edge rusher before the regular season kicks off. And frankly, when you watch their fierce division rivals, the Los Angeles Rams, shock the entire football world by adding an absolute alien like superstar Myles Garrett to a defense that was already among the most lethal in the conference, you can easily understand exactly why that intense organizational pressure is mounting inside the San Francisco front office. The elite names currently being linked to the 49ers span a wide and fascinating range of financial cost, age profiles, and on-field production. Alex Alex Highsmith of the Pittsburgh Steelers is currently the specific name generating the most significant traction in NFL reporting circles. Highsmith has been incredibly productive throughout his career, racking up 45 sacks over his 6 impressive seasons in the league, and he is coming off an excellent campaign where he dropped quarterbacks 9.5 times. While he might not possess the generational game-wrecking aura of a Myles Garrett, he represents the exact kind of consistent, technically sound, and highly reliable pass-rushing presence that San Francisco desperately lacked during the most critical moments of last season. Furthermore, the Steelers' current roster construction and tight salary cap situation have created the absolute perfect storm for a potential blockbuster trade. With T.J. Watt firmly locked in as the multi-million-dollar face of that historic Pittsburgh defense, and their rising young standout Nick Herbig having just signed a massive, eye-popping 4-year, $100 million contract extension, the Steelers are facing a harsh financial reality check, trying to carry 3 massive contracts for 3 top-tier edge defenders on the exact same roster is a financial nightmare, and it is precisely the kind of crunch that forces front offices to make elite players available. Highsmith is the most logical and valuable candidate to be moved. According to league sources, the reported asking price coming out of Pittsburgh is a second-round draft pick. That is a heavy, substantial investment that is already sparking intense debates across sports talk radio and fan forums. A second-round pick is a premium, highly valuable asset used to sustain long-term success, but it is also precisely the type of chip a team sitting squarely in a championship window must be willing to push into the center of the table. A large contingent of NFL analysts are loudly arguing that the 49ers front office needs to completely forget about future draft picks and go acquire the proven star right now. That aggressive all-in mentality is exactly what the ticking clock of this current championship window demands. The rival Rams just showed the entire league that they are playing for keeps with the Garrett trade. The NFC is wide open, but it is incredibly top-heavy and hyper-competitive. San Francisco currently boasts an absolutely incredible core of generational talent with Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Trent Williams. This spectacular collection of football minds and elite athletes represents a championship window that is wide open right now. But as we have seen time and time again in this brutal league, windows of greatness close fast, and they do not stay open forever. Whether a second-round pick is the absolute right price to pay for Highsmith specifically is a complex mathematical and scouting calculation that John Lynch and his staff are better equipped to handle than anyone else. But the foundational philosophy of trading away future draft capital in exchange for proven, immediate impact production is incredibly easy to defend given the current state of this organization. But Highsmith is far from the only intriguing option currently on the table for San Francisco. Josh Sweat of the Arizona Cardinals adds a completely different, highly volatile element to this fluid situation, with explosive reports confirming that he has officially requested a trade out of Arizona. When a star player publicly demands a trade, it drastically changes the leverage dynamics of any deal. The Cardinals simply will not be able to hold out for maximum value when the entire league knows their marquee pass rusher desperately wants out of the facility. Sweat put together a monster season last year, registering 12 impressive sacks, and he brings a completely unique physical skill set to the conversation. He wins with elite, blistering speed and an unbelievable ability to bend around the edge of offensive tackles. Because of the messy public trade demand, his trade cost could be significantly lower, making him a highly efficient financial acquisition compared to Highsmith, even if Highsmith represents the safer, more stable overall choice. Finally, Kayvon Thibodeaux rounds out the list of legitimate targets as the absolute highest upside, yet most uncertain option available on the market. The former top 5 draft pick has not consistently matched his massive, sky-high pre-draft potential, making him the exact definition of a change of scenery player. He is the type of raw talent who suddenly explodes into a dominant force when placed in a brand new culture and scheme. The 49ers possess a legendary league-wide track record of unlocking defensive linemen under the brilliant guidance of their masterful defensive line coach, Chris Kocherek. If the trade price from his current team reflects his recent inconsistent production rather than his elite draft pedigree, there could be an absolute goldmine of league-winning value just waiting to be unlocked in San Francisco. The powerhouse organization that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have meticulously built over the years is still firmly positioned at the absolute top of the championship landscape. The pure talent on this roster is undeniable. The coaching staff is elite. This entire team has been carefully crafted to win a ring right now, and adding an elite edge rusher via the trade market represents the single clearest, most direct path toward making this defense a unit that opposing coordinators genuinely fear, rather than one they can easily manipulate when their protection schemes hold up. The earth-shattering Myles Garrett trade completely altered the landscape of the NFC West overnight. How San Francisco chooses to respond to that massive divisional shift is easily the most critical and fascinating roster question of the entire summer. But as we close out today's documentary, we must remember that more than the high-stakes trades, the endless media rumors, and the intense pressure of roster construction, our hearts and thoughts belong entirely to the memory of Aldon Smith. He was a spectacular athlete who showed the world flashes of absolute breathtaking greatness for 2 unforgettable seasons. He was a man who silently fought intense private battles that none of us could ever fully comprehend from the outside. And in his final beautiful act on this earth before his tragic passing, he chose to spend his time feeding people in desperate need. Rest in eternal peace, Aldon. As we reach the final minute of today's video, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone watching. If you are a true die-hard member of this 49ers community and you want to stay deeply connected to every single major breaking story, rumor, and update from today all the way through the final whistle of the season, please hit that like button right now. We want to hear from you. So please go down to the comments and share your absolute favorite memories of watching Aldon Smith dominate on Sundays. And let us know which elite edge rusher you think the front office needs to target in a trade to bring another trophy back to the Bay. If you haven't subscribed to NFL Focus yet, please click that button and join our growing football community right now. As we mentioned earlier, our team puts an incredible amount of hard work, long hours, and passion into producing these cinematic documentaries for you. Every single subscription gives us the vital motivation we need to keep grinding and delivering the content you love. Thank you so much for your time, stay safe, and as always, go Niners!